Hello friends, welcome to Homeschool Art. Today we're going to be talking about Helen Frankenthaler. Helen Frankenthaler was born in Manhattan, New York, December 12, 1928, and she lived all the way to 2011. Helen Frankenthaler exhibited her art for 6 decades. That's 60 years. Helen played a pivotal role in changing abstract expressionism to color-filled painting. She is renowned for her woodcuts. Among lots of other things, Helen spent her whole life experimenting and trying new things. She worked in ceramics and sculpture and woodcuts and printmaking and painting, of course. Helen came up with a specific type of painting called soak stain painting. So what she would do is this. She would take her big, huge canvas or paper, but usually canvas. She would lay out her canvas on the floor of her studio. It was massive. And then she would take oil paint that was kind of watered down, and she would pour it or splatter it, pour it on in a puddle and then move it around a little bit with her hands or things like that. And she created these massive, beautiful, very expressive paintings. Helen grew up in a home where her parents focused on education and preparing yourself for a career in the future. So for Helen and her sisters, it was a good way to grow up and be educated, and she was very blessed in that way. So Helen thought everything should be spontaneous. Spontaneous means that something happens or you do something without thinking about it a whole lot, without planning it out. You just do it. And so she thought the best art was spontaneous. And she loved lyrical gestures that were kind of fluid. If you turned on music and danced with your music, that would be lyrical. Helen said, "A really good picture looks as if it happened all at once." Helen loved fluid shapes, abstract regions of color, abstract masses, and lyrical gestures. Now for your inspiration. Helen said, "A really good picture looks as if it's happened at once. It's an immediate image. For my own work, when a picture looks labored and overworked, you can read in it, well, she did this, and then she did that, and then she did that. There's something in it that has not got to do with beautiful art to me. And I usually throw these out. Though I think very often it takes 10 of those over-labored efforts to produce one really beautiful wrist motion that is synchronized with your head and heart. And you have it. And therefore, it looks as if it were born in a minute. There are no rules. That is how art is born. How breakthroughs happen. Go against the rules or ignore the rules. That is what invention is about." She also said, you have to know how to use the accident, how to recognize it, how to control it, and ways to eliminate it so that the whole surface looks felt and born all at once. Lastly, she said, there are no rules. Let the picture lead you where it must go. Okay, here's what we're gonna do today for our art project. You can choose what you want to do. You can get a big piece of paper. I got a poster board, or you can get a canvas. You lay it down flat in a place where you can leave it for a long time so it can dry. Take watercolors that have kind of watered down, and you start to pour it on your canvas or your paper. And you can move things around with your fingers. You can do little drips. You can splatter it, as long as you're not getting it all over your mom's house. Make sure you're covered with something like a smock or an old t-shirt or something that will protect your clothes. When I was growing up, my mom would take the egg dyes from dyeing Easter eggs, and she would draw a picture for me, and I would paint it with the egg dyes. And then we'd throw them out when we were done. So this time I saved the egg dyes from dyeing our Easter eggs because those are really good colors. My children used canvases and I used a big poster board. So for mine, I laid my poster board out on the ground. I dripped 3 colors onto it. I had red, yellow, and blue. And I loved seeing when they came together and they made a different color, when the colors met. This took a long time to dry, but it was worth it. So here is mine. I think it's interesting. So you had some areas where it faded. So this is where it faded and it started to dry in here. This is why this is darker and this is lighter. And you see that I dripped things out and I moved my picture a little bit so things would move in a different way. I like it. It came out interesting. Now I'm going to show you what my kids did. 2 of my sons experimented with quick colors. They put theirs on, and one decided that he wanted to see what would happen if he put a puddle in and then he dragged his finger along. And then he added more paint to here and he watched as the paint flooded the whole area that he had painted, and it didn't go beyond where he'd painted. And he thought that was pretty awesome. His turned out very light. He didn't love that outcome, but I think it's just fine. This is the other son's. Lots of greens and dripped things around and moved it with his fingers. and had a great time. My daughter's was like this. Her colors were a little more saturated because she didn't move them around a lot. She just put them down and let them stay where they were. I love how up here there's blue and brown in here together, colors mixed together. For my last two, something interesting happened. They used a lot of paint and their paint ran together. When you have paint run together, it will make brown. And these paintings puddled together. Their paintings took a long time to dry. You can see that as it shrunk down, as it dried, it left the shape of the puddle, which I thought was very interesting and a cool way to go about it. You'll also see that something in the egg paints, there was a mineral left over and it created a ridge right around the edge of some interesting mineral. I thought that was so cool. Art principle of the day. We're going to talk about balance. To achieve balance in a painting, you need one of three things. These are the basic principles of balance. Balance refers to the visual weight of elements in the painting. An element could be a tree and a barn, or a person and a painting in the background. These are elements in a painting. Visual weight, if there's a really big person in the painting and a little teeny painting in the background, the person weighs more in the painting than the little picture in the background. Balance is a sense that the painting feels right or that it feels wrong. Balance can be achieved in three ways. First, symmetry, in which both sides of the composition have the same elements in the same position, like a mirror image or a portrait. You could have a person in the middle of your picture, and on one side is one eye, on the other side is another eye. You can see in this leaf, the fronds go out from a central area and it is balanced and beautiful. Next, we have asymmetry, which you'll see in many paintings. Probably the majority of paintings will have asymmetry. The composition is balanced due to the contrast of any of the elements of art. For example, you could have a large circle and it could be balanced out by a little teeny square. Or you could have a big bright tree and it's balanced out by a large section of mountains in the distance in the background. Radial symmetry is when elements are arranged around a central point, like in the spokes of a bicycle wheel. Nature has radial symmetry all over the place. Look at the daisy. It has a yellow center and white petals that come out all around it. Or in succulents. You see it in nature quite a bit. When you are composing a piece of artwork, you want to make sure that it feels right, that it doesn't feel like the whole thing is gonna tip over. If you look at Starry, Starry Night, there's the great big dark tree and it's balanced out by the bright yellow moon. Thank you so much for joining us here at Homeschool Art. I hope that you press the like button and tell your friends about this. That would really help me out. Have a good day. Bye.